A tale of two economies, with Detroit and much of Michigan down in the dumps. How does a different state on the flip side of the economic picture flourish? How does Texas do it? Welcome to Studio L. I'm Norvell Rose, Liberty News TV. Today's focus, two states, a state of failure and a state of success. Joining us by phone to discuss the whys and wherefores is Chuck DeVore, Vice President for Policy at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Formerly a California lawmaker and a conservative candidate for higher office, Chuck is a recent Texas transplant where he now fights for liberty and free markets. Chuck DeVore, thanks for joining us on Studio L. We appreciate your being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Chuck, let's talk for a moment about Detroit, essentially a failed city falling into bankruptcy, arguably as a direct result of decades of progressive, government-controlled, union-favored economic policy. What key factor or factors, Chuck DeVore, send a city like Detroit into such a death spiral?
Well, I think everything hinges on jobs and the government policies toward free enterprise. What you see between Detroit and Michigan as a whole and Texas's cities is a very different attitude toward free enterprise, toward business and the whole realm of people getting out there and taking risks and working and producing things of value. And what happens over time is you see that in nations and states and cities where there's a concerted government policy that discourages business, you see business begin to die, and then people start to vote with their feet. And this, of course, is reflected in things like U.S. Census Bureau data that shows that in the last decade, Detroit lost about 25% of its population. Michigan as a whole lost 1.3% of its population, the worst showing of the 8 biggest states. Texas, on the other hand, grew by over 20%, the best showing in the biggest states in the last 10 years from 2002 to 2012. And I think that, the very basic level, people vote with their feet. People are moving to where there's opportunity, and there's opportunity in Texas, and there isn't in Michigan, and especially in Detroit.
What are some of the policies in Texas, Chuck, that encourage business growth, and what are some of the practices or problems you've removed to encourage free enterprise?
First of all, it's a range of issues. It isn't just taxation. It isn't just regulation. It isn't just the tort climate or the lawsuit climate. It also includes things like right to work, which Michigan has finally caught up in just the last year and become a right to work state. That should begin to stop the hemorrhaging in Michigan. You always hear proponents or apologists for Detroit and for Michigan saying, well, it's the U.S. auto industry died and that's what killed Detroit. It's like, well, no, it didn't die. It's quite alive and well in the South, where there's an enormous amount of automotive manufacturing done mostly by foreign auto companies, BMW, Toyota, et cetera, where their plants are not unionized, and therefore the workers are more flexible, the company is able to make more money, and everybody wins. And so if you look at, for example, tax policy couldn't be more different in the two states, as well as the share of state and local government spending as a percent of the economy. In the case of Texas, in the most recent year available, about 15.5% of the residents' income went toward state and local government. It's 20.2% in Michigan. If you look at the case of state and local spending, so in other words, taxation at the state and local level as a share of income, it's 7.9% in Texas, and it's 9.8% in Michigan. That's 24% more as a share of someone's income going to support state and local government in Michigan than in Texas. And that adds up. If you're running a business, having to fork over 20%, 24% more of your hard-earned cash to state and local government, that adds up year after year.
And finally, Chuck DeVore, can you touch on some of the areas where Texas could be better for business? And what's the Texas Public Policy Foundation doing to advance the agenda of free enterprise, free markets?
Well, there's a few areas where we think we can do better. Number one, we'd like to see a stronger tax and expenditure limit in the state of Texas. Right now, there's a modestly strong limit, but it could be better to restrain the growth of state government. Another thing we'd like to see is more freewheeling educational choice. right now, due to a confluence of political factors where more conservative rural and suburban districts typically are resistant to school choice, as are some of the more inner-city liberals who are more beholden to the unions. And so you have this odd left-right coalition in Texas that has been resistant to really allowing the tonic of competition to come to our public school system to improve it. So, we've seen modest improvement in that realm, but we could certainly see a lot more to dramatically improve our public school system in the state of Texas.
And if our viewers want more information on the foundation and its efforts?
I'm at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. We're at texaspolicy.com. And the foundation is the largest state-level free market think tank in the country. And what our job is to do is to kind of produce the free market ideas that then the activists and the elected officials and the people running for office then consider and use. So we're really not out there, influencing elections, but what we're trying to do is show people, hey, here are some good ideas that are freedom and liberty-oriented and would likely lead to more prosperity and more jobs. And so that's what we view as our role in the great state of Texas.
Okay, Chuck DeVore, thanks so much for your insight and for joining us here on Studio L. We welcome you back anytime.
Well, thank you.
And we hope that you'll be watching for our next special report on key issues and organizations fighting for liberty in states across America. Thanks for joining us here on Studio L. I'm Norvell Rose, Liberty News TV.